Some legends don't begin as legends. They begin as sounds in the dark. A shape where nothing should be. A scream that doesn't belong to any animal you know. A farmer steps outside and finds tracks that stop at a fence because whatever made them didn't go through. It went over. And a man hears his animals panic in the middle of the night, looks up and sees something with wings too large to be real. Tonight, we're stepping into two stories people didn't tell because they wanted attention. They told them because something happened and they needed a name for it. The deep woods of New Jersey, the dark hills of Maryland. Two states, two creatures, two nightmares that feel a little too old to die. I'm Quackster, and this is Quack in the Dark, Urban Legends. Welcome back. This season, we're traveling across America through the urban legends that have attached themselves to roads, woods, swamps, fields, and forgotten places for generations. But legends don't survive just because they sound strange. They survive because somebody somewhere swore they saw something. Something they couldn't explain. Something they couldn't forget. Something the town eventually gave a name. Tonight's episode is called Devils and Beasts. First, we head into the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, where one of the most infamous creatures in American folklore has screamed its way through centuries of fear, the Jersey Devil. Then we travel to Maryland, where people once looked in the night sky and feared a winged predator with a name that still sounds wrong when you say it out loud, the Snallygaster. One belongs to the trees, the other to the sky, and both feel like the kind of things people only see once, before spending the rest of their lives wishing they hadn't. So keep the lights low, lock the doors, and if you hear something outside your mind can't place, don't go looking for it. The horses were already restless before he stepped outside. Thomas noticed it the moment he lit the lantern. One mare kept jerking her head toward the tree line so hard her hack clinked against the wood. Another stamped the packed dirt floor of the barn over and over, snorting into the cold night air. Animals always knew things first. Storms, strangers, fire. But this wasn't any of those. This felt worse. He held the lantern higher and listened. At first, there was only the normal sound of pines at night, wind brushing the tops of trees, insects, the faint creak of wood settling around him. Then something else. A cry from deeper in the dark. Not a howl, not a shriek. Not anything he had heard from a fox, dog, owl, or cat. It sounded wrong, like something trying and failing to be natural. The horses reacted before he did. One jerked so hard against the stall, he nearly slipped. Another pulled back with the whites of her eyes showing. Thomas set the lantern down for a second, grabbed the nearest rope and muttered at them like his own voice could steady the air. It didn't, because then the scream came again. Closer. This time he took the lantern and stepped outside. The yard looked thin and brittle in the light. Fence posts, mud, a few low shadows from barrels and tools. The barn behind him, the tree line ahead, and in that strip of ground between the fence and woods, tracks. He moved closer. They were not deer tracks, not horse, not any farm animal he knew. They looked split in places, almost hoof-like, but the spacing was wrong. Too deliberate, too long between impressions, as if whatever made them had landed lightly and moved with strange confidence against the mud. He followed them to the fence and stopped, because they ended there. Not under the fence, not through it, not turned back. Just ended as if something had crossed the yard and taken to the air. Then something moved in the trees. Not a full shape, just a disturbance. Branches shifting where there wasn't enough wind to explain it. Thomas lifted the lantern and saw two things at once. A brief flash of something pale and angular between the trees, and something above him beating once hard through the dark. The scream came a third time. So close now it felt like a sound, and more pressure in its chest. Then Thomas did what men do when the story suddenly becomes too real. He backed towards the barn without taking his eyes off the woods, got inside, barred the door, and waited for morning with the horses trembling around him. By sunrise, the story had already begun. A cry in the dark, tracks no one recognized, something that crossed the yard and left without using the ground. And in New Jersey, especially around the Pine Barrens, stories like that have always had a name: the Jersey Devil. There are places in America where the land itself feels like it's built for legends. The Pine Barrens are one of those places. Wide stretches of forest, twisted roads, sandy soil, thick brush, long, lonely miles where the trees seem to swallow light and sound whole, even in the daylight. The Barrens feel separate from the rest of the world. At night, they feel older than it. That is the perfect setting for a creature people have feared for centuries. And the most famous version of the creature story begins with Mother Leeds. According to the legend, she was pregnant with her 13th child, and overwhelmed and bitter, cursed the unborn baby by declaring it would be the devil. When the child was born, the story says it transformed, twisting into something unnatural, sprouting wings, growing hooves, and flying up the chimney into the New Jersey night. From there, the legend only grew. Descriptions vary, but they always stay unsettling. A horse-like or goat-like head, wings, hooves, clawed limbs, a long tail, and a scream no one forgets. Some say it stands upright. Some say it jerks. Some say it glides more than it flies. But almost every version agrees on the feeling it leaves behind. Not just fear, recognition. The sense that you are in the presence of something you were never meant to understand. That's why the Jersey Devil survived. Not because of one story, because of many. Farmers hearing animals panic at night. Travelers seeing something cross the road too quickly to name. Hunters hearing cries in the woods that made them leave early. Families finding strange marks in the snow or mud and deciding they'd rather not know. And over time, those small stories became regional folklore. Newspapers helped. Public panic helped even more. In the early 1900s, especially during the famous wave of reports in 1909, sightings of the Jersey Devil spread quickly. Townspeople claimed to see it flying overhead. Strange tracks appeared in the snow. People whispered about rooftops, livestock, and wings moving where nothing living should have been. Whether every report was true almost doesn't matter now. What mattered was the people believed enough to change how they lived. But they locked doors earlier, they kept children inside. They stopped laughing quite so hard when the Pine Barrens got mentioned after dark. That's how a legend becomes real in the way that matters. Not because it's proven, because it reshapes behavior. And the Jersey Devil is still doing that. Even now, the Pine Barrens still feel like the kind of place where something could exist just beyond the tree line without ever giving you a clean look at it. The forest is too large and the roads are too lonely. The dark is too willing to help the story along. And that's what makes the Jersey Devil more than just an old tale. It feels rooted, as if the land itself made room for it. Maybe the screams were foxes, the tracks were distorted prints, and the sightings were people trying to force shape into the dark. Or maybe they are really something in the pines that moves differently from anything else. Something that doesn't need you to believe it, only hear it once. And if you ever hear that scream in the Pine Barrens that doesn't sound like anything the mind can comfortably name, don't follow it. There's something ancient about the Jersey Devil. It feels tied to a curse, forced in old American fear. But our next story has a different kind of terror. Because if the Jersey Devil belonged in the trees, the next beast belongs to the open sky. And there's something deeply wrong about looking up and realizing that dark above you is moving. If you're enjoying tonight's episode, make sure you're following Quack in the Dark and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen. That support helps more people find the show. And if your town has a local legend people still swear is real, send it to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Discord at Quack in the Dark. I want to hear the stories your part of the world still tells after dark. Now, let's head to Maryland, where some people, the fear didn't come from the woods, it came from above. The chicken started screaming before Elias saw the sky. He had been half asleep in the chair by the front window, boots still on, hat tipped low over his eyes, when the sound ripped through the night and pulled him upright. Not clucking, not rustling, panic. The kind of noise animals make when something has entered their world that does not belong there. He grabbed the shotgun by the door and stepped out onto the porch barefoot. The cold of the wood surprising him awake. The yard was chaos. Feathers scattered across the ground. The hens were hurling themselves against the sides of the coop. But by the fence line, one of the horses reared and slammed back down, hard enough to shake the rails. Elias took 2 steps into the yard and froze, because the animals weren't looking toward the woods. They were looking up. At first he thought it was a cloud crossing the moon, something wide and dark moving too low across the sky. Then it shifted, not drifting, beating. Once, twice. Huge rings were cutting through the night with a weight no bird should have had. He lifted the shotgun, but his arm suddenly felt clumsy, disconnected. The shape crossed over the roofline of the barn so fast that for the second, he only caught pieces of it. A long neck or beak, claws tucked in, a body that looked built wrong somehow, like several creatures forced together. Then it passed into shadow. The animals got louder, and from somewhere over the field behind the barn came a sound like air being split open. Elias moved backwards without meaning to, one slow step at a time, eyes locked on the dark stretch of the pasture. He waited. Nothing. Only animals now, still frantic, still staring upward. Then the thing came back. This time lower. A shape dropping out of the dark in a steep, silent arc before pulling up hard enough to vanish over the roof again. He caught a glint then. Maybe moonlight on the eye, maybe not. Maybe something sharper, older, hungrier. By the time he reached the porch again, he was no longer thinking like a man protecting livestock. He was thinking like prey. He got inside, bolted the door, and did not open it again until dawn. Look. In the hills and fields of Maryland, people had a name for stories like that. A name for the thing that flew where it should not have been and made the sky itself feel dangerous. The Snallygaster. Some names are frightening because of what they mean. Others are frightening because they sound wrong from the start. Snallygaster is one of those names. It doesn't sound like a bird. It doesn't sound like folklore. It sounds like something dragged into language because too many people needed a word for what they thought they saw. The legend is most often tied to Maryland, especially the rural regions around Frederick County and the surrounding hills. The roots likely reach back into older immigrant folklore, especially because German traditions where stories of fast-snatching flying monsters already existed in some form before reshaped by American landscape and fear. And what landscape it was. Long roads, wide fields, dark barns, farmhouses separated by stretches of open land. In places like that, the sky matters. You notice it more, depend on it more. Fear what moves across it. So when reports began to spread of a huge winged creature with claws, a pointed beak, and an unnatural body, people listened. Because a beast in the woods is one thing, a beast overhead is another. Descriptions of the Snallygaster changed with the storyteller, but they have never softened. Huge wings, a long pointed mouth or metal-like beak. Sharp claws. A body too strange to classify. Sometimes reptilian, sometimes bird-like. Sometimes something worse. A thing with tentacles or other features that sounded like life's biology and more like a nightmare. And maybe that's why the legend stuck, because it refused to settle into one safe shape. It stayed unstable, hard to file away. Exactly the kind of creature fear likes best. In the early 1900s, newspapers helped turn the Snallygaster from local rumor into public fascination. Articles carried reports of sightings and fed the story further than the word of mouth ever could. People argued over what it was, a hoax, a giant bird, something prehistoric, or something supernatural. But once those arguments begin, the damage is already done. Because now everyone is looking up, and when people start looking for a monster, every shadow overhead becomes a possibility. That is the unique terror of the Snallygaster. You do not stumble upon it in a clearing. You do not hear it moving through the brush. It finds you from above. That changes the whole structure of fear. The field is no longer open, the road is no longer safe, and the night sky is no longer neutral. It becomes a hunting ground. That's why the story survives. Not just because of how strange the creature sounds, but because of what it does to your imagination. You step outside for one moment, the animals are restless, the air feels raw, and suddenly you are not checking the tree line, you are checking the moon. That is powerful folklore. The kind that turns one ordinary direction of the world into a threat. Maybe the Snallygaster has nothing to do more than newspapers amplifying fear around misidentified animals and old folk memory. Because people saw cranes, shadows, storms, or birds distorted by distance and dread. Or maybe more than one witness in Maryland looked up, saw something impossible crossing the night, and spent the rest of their lives trying to force it into words. Either way, the legend endures because it leaves behind a perfect image. A quiet field, animals in panic, a shape sliding across the moon, and an awful feeling that something above you has already decided where to drop. And if you ever hear the rush of an enormous wings over an empty field after midnight, don't stand there trying to prove yourself it's a bird. Get inside. Two states, two creatures, two legends that feel like they were born from the landscape itself. The Jersey Devil turns the Pine Barrens into a place where every scream in the woods feels like a warning. The Snallygaster turns Maryland sky into something predatory. Something that doesn't need darkness to hide, only height. One waits in the trees, one circles above. But both survive because they begin in the same way most unforgettable legends do. With someone hearing something they shouldn't. With somebody hearing something they couldn't explain, seeing something they couldn't comfortably name, and telling the story anyway. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe they were frightened. Maybe fear made the creature larger each time it was retold. But maybe some stories stay alive because there was enough truth in the first scream or the first shadow to keep the rest of us listening. So tonight, I want to know which one gets under your skin more. The thing screaming somewhere deep in the Pine Barrens, or the thing passing over Maryland dark with wings too big to belong to the world? Come tell me on Facebook, Instagram, and Discord at Quack in the Dark. And if your town has a local creature, warning, or legend people still swear is real, send it my way. It might end up in a future episode of Quack in the Dark. I'm Quackster, and this has been Quack in the Dark. Stay out of the deep woods, keep one eye on the sky, and if the night suddenly makes your animals panic, trust them.